Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. Got a great show on this Tuesday afternoon. Not afternoon, I'm sorry, it's evening here. It may be afternoon somewhere though. Just like it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Actually, it's 5 o'clock right here. So, hey, time zones, right? Anyway, I'm sure that made no sense. But, hey, like I said, we got a great show today. We're going to talk a little bit about the shutdown. So we got a couple of segments on that, including what might happen to people staying in government-subsidized housing. That is potentially disastrous, just like, of course, food stamps. We've got that story. We've also got talk about the wall, and that's related to the shutdown. Then we've got a Republican literally running from the press. I love that story. That's awesome. We'll talk about that. Then we have a couple of segments on Ocasio-Cortez, including Whoopi Goldberg in The View versus AOC. This is not the first time she has been attacked by Whoopi Goldberg, so we'll talk about that. And then we also have Ocasio-Cortez versus Washington Post. There is a Washington Post writer who is making an interesting comparison between her and Sarah Palin. I kid you not. We're going to break that down. We'll talk about it. That's an interesting segment. So I know some of you might actually be having problems, I'm seeing in the chat, of getting reminders. There's I think where you have to like click the bell and make sure that you get reminders and like check a checkbox or something in there, because YouTube has made it difficult for videos to get out to subscribers and live stream notifications. Also, we kind of started the stream really late because I was working on the segments, so that also might have delayed. So sorry about that, guys. But hey, if you could please share the stream out, give us a like and share. I also posted that notification in the chat of ways that you can help the show, including Patreon. We're still doing a fundraiser for a camera. We're currently still at $295. So if you want to donate to that, there's a GoFundMe link in the description. That money's going to go to buying new equipment to help the show. So that's one way that you can help us get a new camera. And of course, we'll give you guys a shout out as well, those who donate. And who knows? Maybe I can figure out somebody for something for the person who donates the most. I don't know. But anyway, that is a consideration for later. Okay. That said, we got a great show for you guys today. Let's get into it here. Let's talk about immigration. Let's talk about the wall. All right. Now, the government shutdown is now in its third week with no end in sight. Donald Trump continues to demand that we give $5 billion for the border wall, and now apparently is thinking about declaring an emergency at the border in order to get that funding if he can't get Congress to do that funding. Now, wait a minute. I thought that Mexico was going to pay for that wall. Turns out, no, it's not Mexico that's going to pay for the wall. Well, if it's not Mexico, then it comes from Congress. Well, if Congress doesn't want to pay for the wall, or at least votes not to pay for the wall in order to fund the government, well, he's got to find that money somewhere. And God forbid it comes from him. Of course not. Well, you think he's going to pay $5 billion for the wall? Forget about the fundraiser, too. That fundraiser, it's got 11, 15 million, something like that. Nowhere near the $5 billion it needed for just a section of the wall that would cost total anywhere between 20 to 70 billion dollars just to build. Well, so now of course they're mulling an emergency situation down at the border. And so how do you declare an emergency? Apparently you make things up, especially since there is no actual reason for an emergency at the border. Now, recently, President Trump, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Homeland Security Director Kirstjen Nielsen have been pushing a lie in which thousands of terrorists are coming into the United States through the Mexican border, the southern border. Now, recently, Sarah Huckabee Sanders had said that, pushed that lie, and was rebuked on Fox News over the weekend. I want to show you that because it's kind of awesome. Let's take a look.
The president talks about terrorists potentially coming across the border. And here is Secretary of Homeland Security Nielsen. Take a look.
CBP has stopped over 3,000 what we call special interest aliens trying to come into the country on the southern border. Those are aliens who the intel community has identified are of concern.
But special interest aliens are just people who come from countries that have ever produced a terrorist. They're not terrorists themselves, and the State Department says that there is, quote, their words, no credible evidence of any terrorists coming across the border from Mexico.
We know that roughly nearly 4,000 known or suspected terrorists come into our country illegally, and we know that our most vulnerable point of entry is at our southern border.
I know this statistic. I didn't know if you were going to use it, but I studied up on this. Do you know where those 4,000 people come, or where they're captured? Airports.
Not always, but certainly a large number.
The State Department says there hasn't been any terrorists that they found coming across the southern border from Mexico. It's by air, it's by
land, and it's by...
Okay, that's awesome. Special interest alien, by the way. I love that term because it makes me think of like an actual alien that's giving money to the government, like for special interest. Yeah, we're so we're from the planet Zebulon 5, and we've got some money here for Congress. If you guys make sure to dig more fossil fuels and then sell it to us. That's a special interest alien to me. But apparently, we don't have the same definition. So, okay, we're having fun here. But as far as Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes, she just got schooled by Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace is apparently been in the habit of practicing journalism. Fantastic. Wow. Now, he cites the State Department that says no credible information that any member of a terrorist group has traveled through Mexico. And look, to be fair, I've been hearing that since like 2012, right? So people like who are very conservative, I should say, have been like, oh, but you don't understand. The terrorists are coming through Mexico. Yeah, no, they're not. Again, no proof of that. No proof of that at all. The claim that 4,000 or nearly 4,000 terrorists or suspected terrorists were captured at the border is a complete, absolute lie. Not only that, but of course there's more. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol encountered only 6 immigrants on the U.S.-Mexico border in the first half of fiscal year 2018, whose names were on a government list of known or suspected terrorists. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are 100% terrorists, right? Known or suspected. Look, we've actually been pretty, and I don't mean this in the political sense, but pretty liberal at naming people terrorists, just to be fair. So, does that necessarily mean that they're terrorists on the border? No, at all. But nonetheless, Kirstjen Nielsen, she doubles down later. Pence and Nielsen, according to Eli Stickles, says, during lengthy reporter briefing, repeatedly emphasized that the border situation amounts to, quote, an urgent crisis. Perhaps the aim is to convince the public or pressure Democrats back to the table, but also serves to create pretext for POTUS declaring a national emergency. And of course, that's the plan right there. Manufacture a crisis, cite misleading data, or basically a lie, and say, we need an emergency. Well, what emergency? The emergency we just invented. Now give us the money. Come on, man. Look, all this is doing, by the way, as I said before, this is in order to play politics, in order to help Trump's ego. That's what this is. It is very, very clear. Again, it's been reported before that he's like, oh man, I really want I really want to end this, but I got to save face. I got to save face, so I got to get something. Even though government shutdown, the Democrats called my bluff, and they made me shut down the government, which I said I was going to own, by the way. And now I want to get out of it because I know this is a terrible situation, but I don't want to look bad. This is all an ego project. Now, of course, after this, and this is where it gets more fun, social media. Members of the press on social media had a little bit of fun. And I want to read you some of those tweets. Senator Bob Menendez. He said, terrorists are not flooding our southern border. There isn't a national emergency. Mexico didn't pay for a wall. Refugee children are dying at the hands of Trump's deportation force. President Trump is throwing a tantrum, flat out making things up and holding the government hostage. That's absolutely true. The account for Rachel Maddow, MSNBC, says 4,000 or 6. I don't know, maybe they're rounding up to the nearest 4,000. That's pretty good. Again, I don't have much love for Rachel Maddow or MSNBC tweets, but that's actually pretty funny. I don't know if I also have any love for Kurt Eichenwald, but he said, and that's what it's and what it's really all about. There is no sudden crisis at the border. That is why the Trumpers keep lying about terrorists. There is a crisis for Trump's ego. He started a fight to get cheers from Fox, Limbaugh, and Coulter with no idea how to get out. Ego is all. And he's absolutely correct. That is good analysis. Because again, Trump was more than willing to make a deal with the Democrats until he got criticized by Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter. Well, congratulations. You let those people who are pretty irrelevant push you around into a corner in which you cannot escape. Congratulations, dumbass. There's more. Rebecca Ballhaus, she tweets out, during a private meeting with aides at Camp David on Sunday, and this, of course, goes back to how this is ego, how he's trying to save face. Trump said he wanted them to come up with a resolution to the shutdown fight that would reopen the government without him appearing to have capitulated to Democrats. And probably the best one, which kind of puts this whole thing into context, Bradley Moss says, so $5 billion towards a wall to stop 6 suspected terrorists who were caught anyway by the existing border defenses. That's awesome. That is such a perfect encapsulation of what's going on. So wait, why do we need billions of dollars for a border wall to catch the people that we've already caught? It seems like we've got pretty good border security as it is. And of course we do. But the only reasons they want the wall, as I said before, it's a vanity project that a very, very small, like a quarter of the country actually wants. It's ridiculous. Now, afterwards, of course, that backlash, and again, we were having fun. You did have a correction from White House counselor Kellyanne Conway. Now, she went on Fox News last night and on Laura Ingram's show, and Ingram asked Conway about the numbers that on Fox News, asking if, quote, not getting these basic facts right hurts the credibility of the White House. Now, I love the idea that the White House still has any sort of credibility, especially when it comes to factual information. Now, Conway did admit that, well, look, Sarah Sanders kind of conflated some statistics on illegal immigration at the southern border. But, of course, didn't get into much detail. And, of course, Laura Ingram's like, oh, yeah, but, you know, it's fine. Everything's fine. It's just the Democrats that are attacking anyway. So you know. She then threw in drugs, gang members, and crimes. I mean, we still have all that. So, I mean, we still have drugs coming in. And here's what's funny about that. You want to call out Sarah Huckabee Sanders, okay, that's fine, right? And say that she conflated. Well, you also have Kirstjen Nielsen, who conflated and doubled down. And then you also had Vice President Mike Pence, who also doubled down. So they all are pushing this lie willfully. And then later on have Kellyanne Conway say, oh, that was a little bit of a conflation, but you know. Now, you want to talk about facts. You want to talk about what's really going on. Terrorism, right? Again, only 6 suspected terrorists were found crossing the border. As far as the gangs and drugs go, let me tell you, a wall's not going to stop that. A wall's not going to stop drugs. I mean, are you kidding me? Have you heard of narco subs? Have you heard of all the other places that they can use to get around the wall? Come on, man. A wall isn't going to stop anything. It's a dumb idea that will not work and a waste of money that doesn't actually solve our actual problems. But I tell you what it is, and as I mentioned before, as I keep having to repeat myself, this is a vanity project by somebody who is desperate to get his name on something and to actually get something done that doesn't just benefit the rich. I think I'm fairly clear on that. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about some of the economic impact on low-income people from the shutdown. All right. Now, the government shutdown over Donald Trump's wall may end up leading to the eviction of hundreds or thousands of people. Now, this is according to an article by NBC News. Federal contracts with private landlords who own about 1,150 government-funded properties have already expired due to their shutdown, and another 500 could expire this month, and an additional 550 in February if the government remains shut down. So basically, what I'm saying is that these contracts, if the federal government does not have a contract with these funded properties, well, then they're not going to actually be funding these properties, which are subsidized housing, which a lot of low-income people need to be able to pay the rent. They need those government subsidies. So a lot of these low-income people, and yes, a lot of white people on Section 8 subsidized housing will lose their homes if Trump doesn't end the shutdown fairly soon, because those properties will literally end up running out of money. Now, it hasn't quite happened yet. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is overseen by Secretary Ben Carson, has told landlords participating in the Section 8 program that they can use their cash reserves, which are typically required by mortgage lenders to cover any shortfalls. But that will not last forever. Now, normally what happens when there's a government shutdown, because there has been quite a few, I think there was actually 3 last year, what happens when it shuts down is that HUD, when the government reopens, HUD reimburses owners, right, in order to prevent evictions. However, HUD under Carson has been dragging their feet. Now, they've been doing so because, again, under Carson, there have been significant cuts in the program. And because of all those cuts and because of the workload, it turns out that a lot of those departments, or a lot of those, I should say, contracts have not been renewed by the department. So, meaning there will be no reimbursements, there will be no money until they sign those contracts. And of course, that seems to be up to Ben Carson at this point, who has shown that he has basically been asleep on the job. Now, Lori Hoffman, Federal Policy Director for the National Housing Trust, which owns Section 8 properties, said of the situation, quote, "It's a mess." She said, "The pain is coming a lot earlier than we thought." Well, that's not a surprise. Hoffman also told NBC News that HUD officials had previously assured her organization that contracts for December and January would be renewed. However, they have not been renewed, which means those people that are living in those units are in serious danger of being evicted because they just don't have enough money. Now, she said on that, quote, "It's confusing to me why HUD wouldn't have prioritized that and assigned staff to make sure that this wouldn't happen. It's a huge number of contracts and properties and residents." Well, look, for me, it's not confusing at all. Ben Carson was put there for one reason and one reason alone, not to effectively run the agency. He was there to dismantle the agency, to make sure that people did not get the help that they deserve. Look, again, they made massive cuts to a lot of these programs, made massive cuts to the staff. So when there's an emergency like this, they're not going to have enough staff to make sure that these contracts are renewed, because they ultimately don't want government help going to regular people, going to low-income people. That's the problem. So now what happens? Well, Raw Story notes that landlords with limited reserves have a couple of options. For one, they could delay critical repairs. They could take out additional financing, or raise rents or evict tenants, especially if the shutdown continues. Now, of course, if they raise their rents, well, that's going to be very disastrous for low-income families. And if they evict tenants, obviously, it's going to be even more disastrous. So here you have a situation where you have people that are going to lose their homes. Now, a department spokesman did say that landlords with unexpired Section 8 contracts should continue to receive payments this month and next month. However, as I mentioned before, we've got a lot of properties that don't have these contracts. Now, affordable housing real estate companies are already reporting other problems with contracts that remain in place until February. So again, if this is not resolved soon, people are going to lose their homes, which again, let me point out some of the irony here on this, right? Most of the poor people getting assistance in this country are white. Now, look, here's the thing about that. So the reason that I point that out is important because there is a stereotype that the people that are receiving government assistance, well, they're black. Oh, well, you know, we don't care about those guys. But no, there's a lot of poor white people. And guess what? A lot of poor white people voted for Donald Trump. Now, that's, again, there's some irony here. Now, again, pointing that out, I don't want these people to suffer because I don't agree with their political votes. That I don't agree with their political ideology. But again, there's nothing wrong with pointing out the irony here, right? I don't want them losing their homes. I don't want them losing their food stamps. And again, that is another thing that will also be impacted. Some 38 million people are set to lose their food stamp benefits if this shutdown continues. Hey, you know who's not affected, by the way? Congressmen. Congressmen will continue to get paid. But right now, there's over 800,000 workers, some who are working without pay, and others who are furloughed, that are, again, they're not getting paid. And now you're going to have people on Section 8 housing, government subsidized housing, and also people who are receiving food stamps that are going to end up losing all of those things. And I think that's a disaster. I'm not monstrous like the right wing. Okay. I don't want people to lose those benefits. I don't want there to be a government shutdown. But at the same time, I also think that we should not, under any circumstance, pay for that stupid wall. So I just want to point out, though, that I do find it ironic that there are people out there that, look, really want to destroy government, right? That are low income and benefiting from government programs. And now they're going to get to find out what it's really like to be without government. Be careful what you wish for, guys. You just might get it. Okay. All right, let's move on here. This is a fun story. An embattled North Carolina Republican has found an interesting tactic when it comes to dealing with the press. Now, reporter Joe Bruno posted video footage of Mark Harris. Now, Mark Harris is a Republican candidate at the center of the state's disputed 9th congressional district race. Now, there's been all sorts of accusations of electoral fraud flying around. And so when he was questioned by the press, he decided to use a fire exit at the Charlotte Mecklenburg Government Center in order to escape members of the media. Now I want to show you a video of what happened after he ducked out. Let's hold on. Let's take a look on this one.
Reverend Harris, we have the media trail. You mind a couple words?
Now, again, you can hear the fire alarm. So this is after he busted out through the fire exit and ran right to his car. He ran through the parking lot, got into his car, and sped off without taking questions, according to local news affiliate WSOC. He's gone, dude. He is out of there. Sir, we want to ask you about possible allegations of election fraud. Nope, gotta go. I gotta get the hell out of here. Now, of course, you ask him, and he's like, "Oh no, me avoiding reporters? Oh no. I have somewhere very important to go. More important than answering questions about this very disputed race and this possible election fraud that I may or may not have had a part of, but that my staffers certainly had a part of." You know where he had to go that was so important? He had to get to the kickoff of the national championship game where the Clemson Tigers were facing the Alabama Crimson Tide. I got to get to a football game. I got to go. I'm going to hit the fire exit. Yeah, somehow I doubt that. Now, he also tweeted, quote, "Don't worry, we'll have plenty to talk about in the days ahead." Well, that's if you can actually stop running from the press. Look, I know some of you might be sports fans, right? But really, is that something that you would do? Going out a fire escape to get to a game? Is anybody actually buying that excuse? I'm certainly not. No, it's because he doesn't want to answer questions, because I think, in my opinion, he knows that he did it. He doesn't want to answer those questions. He's not interested because he knows he's going to get caught. He knows that he tried to steal an election. Now, if you're innocent, why do you run out the door and speed away from reporters? I'm just curious. Now, remember, it was a Harris staffer, Leslie McCrae Dulles Jr., who conducted an illegal absentee ballot harvesting operation in 2 counties in the state, with, of course, the intention of swinging the absentee ballot vote in Harris's favor. You don't think that came from the top? You don't think that Harris was like, "Hey, Dulles Jr., go get some ballots. Help me swing this election." Because you don't understand how close this is, right? Harris only holds a 905 vote lead over his opponent, McCready. So that's really close. If you want to swing an election that is that close, well then, if you're a Republican, if you're Mr. Harris, well then you might go to some illegal means. Again, I'm not saying 100% he did it, but I'm saying that I think it's likely. But of course, that's why we have an investigation, right? That's why he's under investigation in the state, and is actually soon to be under investigation in the House. House Democrats are looking at investigating this as well. So, look, when it comes to this whole thing, you can run from reporters, right? You can run from reporters all day. They still gonna chase you. But you can't run from a federal investigation. Sooner or later, these investigators are going to find the truth about what happened. And you better hope that you're telling the truth. Because if not, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, what's the penalty for trying to swing an election, trying to steal an election? No, we'll see. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez versus Whoopi Goldberg, as well as AOC versus Max Boot. Oh, you're going to love both of those stories. Stay right here. We'll come back. Leave your super chats, and we will read them following the break. So stay right here. We'll be right back. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. Got a couple of super chats here. L. Donated $20 to the camera fund. Thank you, L. Michael McAllister says, do I have the Rush Limbaugh AOC story? I actually don't. I didn't know there was a Rush Limbaugh AOC story. I will have to look that up. All right. Before we do that, we've got a little bit of breaking news. It appears Paul Manafort may have actually shared campaign polling data with a Russian operative. Oops. At least somebody with Russian intelligence or related to Russian intelligence. Now, according to the Washington Post, real quick here, the information is in a filing that appears to inadvertently include details not intended to be made public. It indicates a pathway by which the Russians could have had access to Trump campaign data. So this, of course, is related to collusion, which, of course, this is what Robert Mueller is actually looking into. So Paul Manafort was Donald Trump's former campaign chairman. If he was sharing internal campaign polling data with Konstantin Kilimnik, right? Now, Kilimnik has ties to Russian intelligence. Well, then that could possibly be enough to get him on collusion. Now, again, that's Paul Manafort, and that could, look, he could be in major trouble after this. So we're going to have to see how that works out. But, man. And by the way, this was accidental. So he literally bungled his way into this. He said, they write, in his rebuttal to the special counsel's claims of dishonesty, Manafort exposed details of the dispute, much of which centers on his relationship with Kilimnik, the Russian citizen who began working for Manafort's consulting firm starting in 2005, has been charged with helping his former boss to obstruct Mueller's investigation of Russian interference into the 2016 election. The special counsel alleged Manafort lied about sharing polling data with Mr. Kilimnik related to the 2016 presidential campaign. According to the unredacted filing, the source of that data, including whether it came from the Trump campaign, is unclear. So again, we don't necessarily know what this actually means, but this could be the possible collusion between at least the Trump campaign and, well, Russian intelligence. So we'll have to see how that works. But anyway, there's that breaking news. We might have a little bit more of a breakdown tomorrow, depending on if you guys are interested in that. But anyway, so now, here's what we're going to do. All right. So we're going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg. We'll do that first. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for the super chats. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Also, we're at 99,000 subscribers, which is really awesome. We've got 1,000 more subscribers to hit before we hit 100,000. So, guys, if you can do that, that's great. Let's get there. Let's get 100,000. Let's go. We can do it. All right. Speaking of doing it, let's go to the next story. First, let's do this. And boom. All right. Excuse me. Now, The View co-host Whoopi Goldberg recently attacked Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez during a discussion about the future of the Democratic Party. Now, I want to show you that video, and then we'll break it down.
She just got in on Thursday. She was sworn in.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's very opinionated, which we like. We like opinionated women. But it is very, very difficult when people make accusations where you say, you know, the Democrats have done nothing. The establishment of the Democrats have done nothing. And I just want to throw this out to you. John Lewis wasn't sitting still.
Right.
Dianne Feinstein wasn't sitting still. There are a whole bunch of people in the Democratic Party who have been busting their asses to make sure that women get what they need, people get what they need, children get what they need. So you just got in there, and I know you got lots of good ideas, but I would encourage you to sit still for a minute and learn the job. And, you know, and just, you know, because there are people in that party who have been working their tails off for this country.
They know a lot.
And they know a lot,
and
you could learn some stuff from them. And I just feel like, you know, you don't have to be born into it. You don't have to know it when you step out. But before you start pooping on people and what they've done, you got to do something too.
All right, so okay. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that, hey, when you get into a job, you do your best to learn it. Okay, I get you there. But the problem here, and I've got a bit of a problem, this is basically the message of sit down and shut up. Listen to your betters, listen to the establishment, basically, and then learn how to play their game, their rules, their way. Nah. I don't agree with that. Now, look, I agree with her that, yes, we like opinionated women, of course, right? Now, Ocasio-Cortez has some opinions, and she is actually sharing them. She is sharing on the Democratic Party. And in her opinion, the Democratic Party has not been busting their asses for the American people. They have been busting their asses for multinational corporations and large donors. That is the problem. So it's the complete opposite. If they actually were busting your ass for the people, Feinstein, which is hilarious. Look, if Feinstein would be in support of Medicare for all, is Feinstein in support? Oh, no, she's not there because it's socialism, right? That's a Republican talking point. All we've seen from Democratic leadership, and I'm talking about leadership, is that Ocasio-Cortez's ideas, which are backed up by a majority of American citizens, and not only that, but backed up by economics, backed up by the fact that other countries do the same thing, look, the whole criticism, again, is absolutely ridiculous. That we need to basically shut up and respect their authority because they've been so busy busting their asses. Again, they haven't been busting their ass for us. If they were, they would be putting forward these policies. And they are not. They are not. But anyway, now those ideas, right? Those ideas, you say they're good ideas, and I agree with you, absolutely. The problem is most Democrats have not been fighting for those ideas. Feinstein, sure, hasn't been sitting still, but again, hasn't come out in favor of a Green New Deal. Hasn't come out on Medicare for all. Hasn't come out on free college. Hasn't come out on all these very popular progressive policies. So why should we sit there and support that and not actually say, how now, wait a minute, why are you not following those? Why are you not supporting those policies? Is it because of the money that you get from these corporations? Is it the money that you're getting from these wealthy donors who don't agree with this? And that's the problem. And I think that's actually a really good question. That's the question we should be asking of our politicians. Is the money that you're getting from corporations and donors affecting your vote? Is it affecting your judgment? And to say that we can't ask those questions is patently ridiculous. These are valid criticisms of the Democratic Party, a party that she chose to join, and a party that she will, vote with, right? And a party that she is trying to steer in a specific direction. And that direction is a more progressive direction that is, of course, geared towards serving the people. And you cannot do that unless you address its shortcomings. To say that you can't criticize the party until you've, quote, done things, right? Again, is ridiculous, right? Again, she said, you don't have to know it when you step out, but before you start pooping on people and what they've done, you've got to do something too. Well, look, she has done something. For one, she actually beat an incredibly entrenched incumbent, Joe Crowley. That was huge. Not only that, but she has led the Sunrise Movement in protesting in Pelosi's office to push for a Green New Deal. She's out there trying to change the conversation on policy And she has successfully shifted the conversation on healthcare, taxes, and the environment. And then her, she's one of the major stars here, but along with other progressives, has led to the creation of a climate change committee. They did pressure Pelosi into doing something about that, and has basically led to the Overton window shifting back to the left when it comes to the national conversation. Now, another thing that she's doing is scaring the shit out of Republicans, and now apparently centrist Democrats. Now, I like Whoopi Goldberg, right? I do. She was guiding from TNG, right? But she, I think, is disconnected from working people. You know why? It's because she's successful. I don't have anything wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with her being successful. She's very successful, and she's very talented, and she is a smart person. But on this, I don't agree with her. I don't agree with her on this, on everything. And I think that what she was saying was condescending. Like, oh, no, you don't understand, AOC. You need to learn your place. No, that's not what this is about. This new Congress, these progressives are about pushing a bold agenda that these other people refuse to push, refuse to do because of the money, right? Now, look, she'll probably resent this if she ever sees this, right? Which I highly doubt. But if Whoopi Goldberg ever sees this, and she's going to be angry at me, right? Because I'm basically saying that she is part of the Democratic establishment. Now, the Democratic establishment tends to get very angry when people who are upstarts start criticizing them for being out of touch. And look, this isn't the first time that she has went after progressives too. She also went after the Justice Democrats. And so I believe in the mission of the Justice Democrats to try to make a better Democrat. But you can't do that unless you actually criticize some of the things that are wrong with the Democratic Party. Now, look, the Democrats, if you want to say, look, I don't like you when you criticize the Democrats because we're not as horrible as Republicans. Look, I don't agree with that, but I understand where you're coming from. Yes, the Republicans are awful. But just because Republicans are awful doesn't mean the Democratic Party is above reproach. It doesn't mean that you can't criticize them for their obvious shortcomings. You can't just focus on how bad the Republicans are, because Hillary Clinton tried that. And look what happened. She lost, and she lost to a reality show, an orange reality show buffoon. So I think the Democrats could use a little constructive criticism from people like AOC. Why? Because they need to learn how to serve the people, not the corporations, not the rich. Sorry, Whoopi Goldberg. I think you're absolutely wrong on this issue. I think you need to step back, and I think you need to learn about what AOC is about, and I think you need to learn what the Justice Democrats are about, and I think you need to understand that the goal here is not to tear down Democratic candidates or to tear down the Democratic Party. It's to build up a party that actually represents the little people, like, regular working people, and not just the establishment. Okay. So that's my tepid criticism of Whoopi Goldberg, right? Now I'm going to be going a little bit harder on Max Boot. I think you'll enjoy this one. Oh, that's great. All right. Now, the Washington Post really doesn't like progressives, especially those people who write opinion pieces in the Washington Post. Now, one of the newest examples of an anti-progressive post is an op-ed by conservative commentator Max Boot. Now, Max Boot wrote an op-ed very dismissive of progressives, and especially of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, in his article, he wrote that Ocasio-Cortez reminded him of Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin, already inexcusable. I can't handle that. I can't handle that. So now he said that she was, quote, and this is talking of Palin, another talented young communicator who made a big splash in national politics for having her lack of knowledge painfully exposed. So the idea that somebody could think that Sarah Palin was ever talented, much less a good communicator? I mean, for God's sake, she couldn't answer a newspaper that she read. Oh, I read all sorts of things. No, she literally would write things on her hand in order to remember and then try to read it. Come on, man. Talented communicator? What a ridiculous comparison. Nonetheless, Boot writes, quote, I feel a little guilty writing this column. Oh, is it because you're trashing a progressive rising star? No. It's because she's gotten too much attention. Quote, AOC has already gotten more publicity than she deserves. The very fact that you are likely to know that I am referring to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as though she were FDR, JFK, or LBJ is a sign of her success in penetrating the national consciousness in an astonishingly short period. Look, hey, I don't think anybody's trying to compare her to FDR, JFK, or LBJ, even though her policies are actually aligned with FDR, to be fair. But anyway, look, notice how condescending that is, right? Oh, look at this, progressive, just only 29 years old, progressive upstart. I mean, she's getting all this attention. She doesn't actually deserve it because she's dumb. And she's just like Sarah Palin. Well, just who the fuck is Max Boot? The guy sounds like he's a character from The Fountainhead. I mean, seriously. But anyway, he's considered a Washington insider, right? And a very important voice in the Washington Post. No, this guy is, again, the only claim to fame is that he does write op-eds and that he's viciously pro-war. And also, but every once in a while he criticizes Donald Trump. He's a Donald Trump critic and wants Democrats to win. That's why the so-called liberal media is like, oh, Max Boot, the Honorable Max Boot. We're going to have him write an op-ed slamming progressives. That's what's going on here. Now, he wrote, quote, instead of studying up, Palin gave any pretense of seriousness and has now disappeared from the debate. This is a cautionary tale for Ocasio-Cortez. Well, now, wait a minute here. Okay. Is he right about Sarah Palin being an idiot? Absolutely. Yes, she is incredibly dumb. And, of course, has disappeared from the national debate, even though she has tried to inject herself into every single debate since. But hey, whatever. Right? You can be right about her, right? But she writes, or he writes, in relation, basically, of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, quote, she is a politician of immense gifts who can have an outsized impact, but only if she masters the intricacies of policy and curbs her fatal attraction to political celebrity and vacuous sound bites. Trump has gone dismayingly far with his reliance on alternative facts, but it's not a formula that his opponents should emulate. So wait a minute here. It's that backhand compliment, right? Oh, I mean, she could be smart. She's a politician of immense gifts. But only if she masters policy, right? Well, wait a minute. When it comes to policy on Medicare for all, she does know policy. That is a good policy. When it comes to the policy of taxing rich people, people making over $10 million a year, 70% marginal tax rates, that is actually sound policy that she's pushing. The policy of pushing a Green New Deal, which will create millions of good-paying jobs and actually help us avoid the most damaging impacts of climate change over the next 10 years, well, that's sound policy as well. It's great economic and environmental policy. What are you talking about, Max? What are you talking about? Oh, if she only would master the intricacies of policy. No, what you want her to do is to say the establishment is correct, Republicans are correct. We must cut taxes for the rich, and we must put all of that money that we have into the defense contractors' pockets. We must go to war. That's what Max Boot believes in. He has never met a war he didn't like. And if you're not in favor of that, if you are in favor of calling out establishment politicians and establishment politics and saying, look, we don't know, we can't really account for some of the money that we have given to the military, to the Pentagon, over the last 10 years, some of which disappeared in a hole in Iraq somewhere. If you criticize that, well, then you're an idiot and you don't know anything. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. But here's the thing. The only thing vacuous is the comparison between Sarah Palin and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And not only that, but saying that the right and left are exactly the same, that people on the supposed far left are the same of people on the far right, is absolutely ludicrous. And you want to talk about lying, right? You want to talk about misstatements of truth, right? Trump has lied over 7,000 times since taking office. Has Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lied 7,000 times? No. Does she get things wrong from time to time? Of course, we're human, right? AOC has had some misstatements. Oops, that fucking happens. But you know what? Sarah Huckabee Sanders also, and Kirstjen Nielsen and President Trump also had a misstatement when they said 4,000 terrorists were trying to come into the southern border. You know what that was? What really happened on that? 6 people who were possibly terrorists were caught on the border. Come on, man. Where's Max Boot on that one? Where's Max Boot? Oh, look, I know he's a Trump critic, right? But apparently what's more important than criticizing that, and maybe he already has, I don't know, he wants to go after progressives. But here's the thing that really rustles his jimmies about AOC. The fact that she calls out the insane Pentagon budget. That's what it is, right? I mean, Max Boot, I mentioned that before. He loves war. He was the one that cheerleaded the loudest into going into Iraq. Now, I think if you love that war and you were doing political analysis at the time, right? So you were an expert in this field, a supposed expert, a policy expert, and we're like, no, we must go into Iraq. Nothing bad will happen. They will see us as liberators. And it'll be very, very cheap. It won't be expensive at all. And everything will turn out great in Iraq. If you held that position, then you're an idiot. You don't know. You don't know anything. You don't know it. You're obviously too dumb to do serious analysis. That's what. And of course, if you criticize the Iraq, and again, he comes out and says, oh, well, I'm sorry about my analysis of the Iraq war. Yet now later, after it all blew up in your face. But there were people saying that from the beginning, that of course you ignored, people like you ignored, oh, you progressives. Oh, you don't know anything. No, I think invading Iraq is going to be awesome. Well, it wasn't awesome. It was a terrible decision. And so if you were in favor of that position, Democrat or Republican, you were an idiot. You don't know anything. Now, look, that's foreign policy. Domestic policy is also like, he's also apparently not very smart on domestic policy because, look, it doesn't make sense to spend trillions of dollars on war while people here in America are dying from lack of health care. That's insane. Yet for some reason, the conventional wisdom in Washington is, oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. We can put more money into the Pentagon, and that's fine. But if we try to put any money into healthcare or education or a Green New Deal, well, then that's terrible. Boom. That's crazy. If you propose that, if you believe that, you're as vacuous as Sarah Palin. Nah, give me a break, dude. Seriously. Sarah Palin wouldn't know good policy if it hit her in the face. Oh, okay, look, to be fair, you know what? I'll take that back. When she was governor of Alaska, she actually socialized oil profits and gave it to everybody in Alaska. I think that's actually pretty smart policy. So credit to her. Maybe she's not as dumb as I thought. But of course, Max Boot would say, well, I was so stupid. No, give all the oil profits to the oil company CEOs and then give all the rest of it to the military. But again, AOC understands good policy because she's been promoting good policy. On her plan to raise taxes on people making over $10 million a year, she consulted with experts who concluded that it was smart policy to tax the rich. Even establishment economist Paul Krugman agrees with this. Very respected establishment economist for the New York Times. Now, following this article, AOC responded, quote, naturally, the same week we kick off a national combo on marginal tax rates, endorsed by Nobel Prize-winning economists, I'm being described as vacuous. If you're allowed to characterize female politicians as unlikable, are we allowed to describe takes like these resentful? It's a good question. Let's refocus our energy and coverage to policies instead of personality. Right now, 800,000 workers are without a paycheck. The president was holding Gov operations hostage so he can build a monument to himself on the southern border that the majority of Americans don't want. So I love that, saying let's focus on policy. Let's focus on actually doing the right thing and combating Trump on those policies that are terrible. Instead of focusing on, well, personality, right? And so, look, here's why she's getting so much attention and being attacked so often by members of both the left and the right. They're scared. They're scared of her popularity, and they're scared of her policy. You can ignore a 70-year-old Jewish guy who yells too much. You can't ignore somebody like AOC, who speaks to regular people on the issues, is photogenic, is energetic, and is right on a lot of these issues. Now, the establishment, they have the opposite problem. They cannot speak to what they do not know. But what people like Boot know, well, they think that they know everything. And they think, oh, no. American people love war. They love endless war. And they love conservative policies. Well, no, they don't. They don't. They don't agree that war is awesome. They don't agree that progressive ideas are terrible. Look at a poll. So what we've got to do is we've got to show people like Max Bootlicker here who's right, who's wrong, and which way the American people want to go. And they want to go in a progressive direction. And actually, let's be real here. It's not America going in a progressive direction. It's AOC and good progressives going in the direction of the people. And so if you don't want to go that way, prepare to be left behind around the nation. Okay. All right, guys. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Got a super chat here from Shane McAndrew. Says, I hope you saw AOC fight Chris Cillizza's smear, along with help from Twitter followers. It was awesome to see that weasel get called out on his hackery. I did see that earlier today. But thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for the super chat. You guys want to support the show? You know how. Please support our fundraiser. It's the links in the description of the video here. Share the stream out. Share the clips. If you missed any part of the show, I'll have the clips up as soon as possible. So do that. Everybody else, go. TYT is next, so check that out. Thank you all, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Love you guys, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.